Welcome, beautiful butterflies, to this week's Flying Free episode. Today, we're tackling a question that is both heartbreaking and deeply personal for so many women. How do we survive when faced with the fear and chaos of someone else's rage? Whether you're walking on eggshells in your own home or grappling with the overwhelming emotions that come from living in survival mode, this episode is here to provide understanding, hope, and actionable steps. We will explore why fear in these moments is a natural and valid response, how to protect yourself emotionally and mentally, and why it's important to shift from mere survival to envisioning a life of peace and freedom. I'll also share strategies for unhooking from the hurtful words of others, recognizing your worth, and making choices to prioritize your safety and well-being. If you're ready to find strength and clarity amid the storm, stay with me. This conversation might be the first step toward reclaiming your power and discovering a life beyond survival. Let's dive in. Here's our listener question. How do we survive when the husband has an episode of rage and we're not yet able to leave the home? How do we handle it without the rage and the threats causing us so much fear that we're physically ill? How do we mentally toughen up? What do we say to ourselves to survive it until it blows over? Okay, I think this question is like asking, if I fall in a swamp where there are alligators, how do I mentally toughen up? How do I handle the fear I have that this alligator is going to hurt me? What do I say to myself to survive until that threat is over? So my answer would be, if I fall in a swamp where there are alligators, I'm going to be afraid, period. There's just no way around that. I am a normal human with normal emotions. When I put my hand in a fire, my hand is going to burn. I'm not going to be able to handle that. I'm not going to be able to say something to myself to make it easier for me to survive that. I'm just probably going to scream and try as hard as I can to get away as soon as I can. Or maybe if I'm being threatened by a bear who's coming after me, I think I heard somewhere that you're supposed to stand still and act like you don't notice them or something. Don't quote me on that, but you should Google that probably before you end up following those instructions if you meet a bear next week. But I think you're not supposed to make eye contact or something. I can't remember. But my point is that whatever is threatening me, I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep myself safe. Now, in some situations, that's going to mean freezing. Have you ever had a bee buzzing around you? What do? You freeze. You don't want to move. In some situations, it might mean running. In some situations, it might mean banging on pots and pans. I think I saw that on a Little House on the Prairie video once or show once. I don't remember. But in some situations, it will mean placating and fawning until such a time as I can get away. So I'm not sure that I want to toughen up my hand, for example, so that it can endure fire, or that I want to toughen up my emotions so that I can be around alligators and bears or bad men without being afraid. I think I'm just going to go with my natural instincts and my gut reactions. Okay, now, all of that said, I do think there are strategies that you can use to help yourself internally in your own mind. For example, if you find yourself giving his words credibility when he says things like, you're a fool, or you're a bitch, or you're a horrible human being, or a bad Christian, or a lazy woman, or a slut, or whatever horrible names he calls you, then I can help you with unhooking from those things so that you can see them as words just flying in the wind, coming out of an asshole's mouth. And they don't mean anything more than that. They don't have to mean anything more than that in your own internal world. He has his own universe in his brain, okay? And his own little world and his own little imagination. And you are just a little Lego character that he can move around and do with as he wishes in his own mind. You are nothing more than that to him. But is he correct? No, he is delusional. he's actually mentally ill. I think misogynistic people are small-minded and stupid, to be frank. So when we buy into their small-mindedness and give their small imaginations credibility about us, that can make us feel shut down and a lot of shame and guilt if we aren't measuring up to their made up Lego character standard for us. I remember exactly where I was standing in my old house when my ex-husband was saying nonsense about me. And for the first time, instead of me feeling shame or guilt, I actually felt sorry for him. And it was in that moment that I realized I had emotionally unhooked from him in this area. I no longer saw him as a credible human being when it came to his opinions about me. He didn't have any credible opinions about me to offer. I saw him as somewhat sick and delusional in his head when it came to his ideas about who I was. And I actually felt sorry for him. Now, I was never afraid, not unlike this listener, I was never afraid that my husband was going to hit me or hurt me physically. He mostly retaliated against me verbally when I gave him feedback about something. So the best way for me to protect myself was to no longer give him feedback. In other words, I couldn't control how he retaliated and the things he would say to me, but I could control what I offered to him. My feedback was always a bid for intimate connection and deep relationship. We don't offer feedback for someone who's an acquaintance on the street who we'll never see again and who we really don't care about. We offer feedback and input with someone that we want to be in a relationship with, someone that we care about, someone that we want to connect with. So I had to take my love for him and my care for him and give that up. I had to let it go. I had to accept that it was not reciprocated. Feedback was not wanted. He wasn't interested in connection. He wasn't interested in a deep relationship. He was interested in a transactional relationship, and that was it. And I had to radically accept that in order to get to the place where I stopped doing the same dance steps that I always did in my relationship with him. When I stopped giving him feedback and I stopped making bids for connection, our relationship, in my experience, was that our relationship got quiet. And actually, what I realized was that the relationship never existed to begin with. And that was the beginning of the end for us. Now, if you're in a situation where your husband is attacking you out of the blue based on his petty moods and whims because he's emotionally stunted in his growth and unable to manage his emotions, then you are in a precarious situation. There really is nothing that you can do to prevent whatever mood he decides to be in. So I encourage you to reach out to your local domestic violence shelter and see if you can create a safety plan with them. I encourage you to utilize resources like amysays.com, AIMEESAYS.com. This is an AI that is specifically designed for domestic violence victims, and it's been very helpful for the women that I've talked to who have used it. Many of them have asked her questions about related to emails or text messages that they've received from abusive people. They've asked her questions related to where are local resources for me, and Amy Says has been able to help them. I'd love to see you start thinking about how you might be able to get out of that pond one day and away from those alligators, or out of that woods and away from that bear, or out of that house that is burning down around you and away from that fire and smoke that's choking you and threatening to kill you. You asked how you could survive until it blows over, and I think you already know the answer to that. You are surviving. Every day you are surviving. Surviving is just barely making it. But you are waking up and you somehow find yourself at the end of each day still alive and going to bed at night. You don't really always know how you got there. That's called surviving. It's a very horrible and painful way to live life. But sometimes when you are in a relationship like that, that is that is the only option that you have at that point in time. And my heart goes out to every one of you out there who is living your life in survival mode. My hope and prayer for each one of you is that you will be able to one day extract yourself from situations like that, and one day be able to live a life of freedom and peace, a life where you can grow and develop who God created you to be. The help that I offer can be found on my website, flyingfreenow.com. If you hop on my mailing list at the top of the website there, I will send you a free copy of the first chapter of my book, Is It Me? Making Sense of Your Confusing Marriage, a Christian woman's guide to hidden emotional and spiritual abuse. And I'll also send you the first chapter of the workbook that goes along with the book. The other way that I help people is in my Flying Free program, and you can learn more about that by going to joinflyingfree.com. Until next time, fly free.